Hey everyone, today's class is all about our hamstrings. As you can see, I have 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks at home, just find something roughly this size. Let's get started. Hey everyone, let's start at the top of your mat in Uttanasana, just a standing forward fold. So go ahead and take your feet hip width apart, maybe a little wider if you're naturally really tight, and take a deep bend in your knees. Start to move in your body. A lot of what we're going to do in this class is intuitive movement. So as you can see, I'm swaying my hips side to side, bending into one knee and then the other. And as your body opens up, you can start to decrease the bend in your knee. So the biggest thing here, and I'll cue this continually, is listening to your body. We're all going to feel these poses and these stretches differently. And what may be a nice deep stretch for me may not be quite as deep for you, and vice versa. So feel free to modify as you need. And as you're swaying into your hips, bending into your knees, I want you to think of also starting to transfer the weight. And the next time we find the bend in our left knee, we're going to pause there. I want you to start drawing your right hip back. So I'm almost bringing my tailbone to the back left corner of my mat, keeping my right leg straight and keeping the weight in my left foot. You can even be up here on a block, or maybe your hands on 2 blocks. And we'll take it to the other side. So nice deep bend in your right knee. I'm going to straighten my left leg and start to kind of kick my hips back towards the right wall. So within this class, we'll do traditional yoga moves that you will know, maybe some yin type moves, but a lot of it's going to be very different. This practice is how I stretch, and I'm always finding a little bit of that movement. Let's take an inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, coming halfway up on your fingertips or maybe hands on your shins. And with your exhale, nice deep fold, rebend your knees, try to relax the back of your neck. We'll go 2 more like that. Inhale, we'll lengthen, heart forward, shoulders back. And with an exhale, fold. I want you to pay attention to your breath on the next one. With an inhale, we'll lengthen halfway up. Draw your navel up towards your spine and start to hollow out the low belly. So keeping that core engaged, low belly drawing in and up, we'll fold in. So as you can see, I'm trying to create this hollowing out shape. So I'm really pulling my Mula Bandha up and back. And I'm lengthening forward from the low back. Everything is going to be soft, my shoulders, but I'm keeping the core engaged. So a lot of this is really subtle movements where I'm using my core to pull me in deeper, not just gravity. Last time here, we'll inhale halfway up. And this time I want you to step your left foot back, pyramid pose or Parshvottanasana. My feet are maybe 3 feet apart. Think of having them on 2 railroad tracks. You can have your hands on 2 blocks here, or maybe fingertips to the ground. So we're going to start here with a static hold. Same idea that we just found in our forward fold, with the low belly pulling upward and backward. So finding that hollowness. The biggest thing you can do is try to relax within the stretch. When your mind is calm, and your breath is calm, your body's going to start to open up. Your muscles are going to relax, and little by little, we'll take it even deeper. Staying just like this with the legs, we'll start to add in a little bit of movement. So all I'm going to do is come forward on my back tippy toe, and then back. So just sort of gently rocking and moving. So we begin to work all sides of the muscle. We'll go for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's place the weight in our back heel if you can. We're going to find that same motion with the hips. I'm going to start to kick my hips back to the right. I'm kind of opening my hips here to the left and then closing it forward. Just a little bit of movement. You don't have to look like me when you do this. You may be watching this like, what the heck is Ashley doing? But when I talk about intuitive movement, that's really the point of our practice in general. Whether it's a strength practice or a flexible practice or meditation or whatever. We're trying to get in tune with our body, right? We're trying to learn what is our body telling us. Step your left foot forward to meet your right, and we'll come back to Uttanasana. This time I want you to hook your two peace fingers around your big toes. With an inhale, we'll lengthen forward. If you have the depth, we can start to bend our elbows and maybe begin to pull your chest a little closer to your thighs. You can still have a nice deep bend in your knees. And we'll find that same little rock side to side. And release your hands. Inhale, we'll lengthen halfway up. And this time, step your right foot back. Same pose, Parshvottanasana, pyramid pose. Trying to find your alignment first. Doing your best to square into your hips. So right hip will pull forward, left hip pulls up and back. And we'll find a little bit of our static hold here. Inhale, come halfway up. Draw your navel in and up. And from the low back, I want you to think of lengthening forward and then folding back in. With your next breath, come up onto your right tippy toes. Same idea, you can keep your hands on blocks or wherever is comfortable. And we'll find our little rock forward and back. And just shifting up onto the right toes and back into the heel. We'll go for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's place the weight back into the right heel. And this time I'm going to start opening my hips to the left wall and then closing. So I'm reaching my right hip back and then forward, squaring it. Open hip, closed hip. Your hands can be wherever is comfortable. Do your best to keep your left leg straight. You can keep a micro bend in your left knee so that we're not hyperextending. We'll go last few here with your breath. One more. Really good. Step your right foot forward, coming back to Uttanasana. A little shorter stance this time, a little more closed in here. Let's relax and fold in. I'm going to take a little bit of a bend here in my right knee and start to crawl my hands over to the right. So as I do this, my left leg is staying straight. And I can even start to, again, kind of cock my hips out to the right and work nice and deep into the outer hip, or outer edge, I guess, of the left hamstring. And we'll come through center and find it on the second side. Deeply bending my left knee. Crawl my hands over to the left. Keep drawing your right hip back. And we'll come back to center. Inhale, lengthen halfway up. Step your left foot back again. This time, lower your left knee down. I'm going to straighten my right leg. So as you can see, my hips are stacked above my left knee. So I'm not sitting down here like I see a lot. I want you to stay really upright. You can have your hands on 2 blocks. If you have the openness in your hamstrings, hands to the mat. So with an inhale, draw the right hip up and back. We're going to lengthen from your tailbone first. So think of reaching without even finding depth, just so much length, length, length forward. Almost like I want to bring the forehead to my big toe. And we'll come all the way down here. Ardha Hanumanasana, half split. So in this pose, what you can't see on camera is what I'm activating. And this is all the internal engagement. I want to stay pretty soft everywhere in my upper body, but I'm actively engaging my right hamstring. So even though it looks like I'm hanging out, I'm finding this action that I want to draw my right heel down the mat. So I'm stretching in an active muscle. Let's go 5 breaths. Really nice, you guys. Stay deep as you are, trying to keep your hips square, so both hips facing the front of your mat. If you have it in you and you can take your time with this, I'm again going to start to crawl my hands over to the right. So similar to what we just did in our forward fold. I want you to keep pulling your right hip up and back. Keep your hips above your left knee. And then we'll come all the way back forward. So this time I'm going to keep my legs as they are. My right leg is straight, but I'm almost going to find a cat-cow action here in my hips. So with an inhale, I'm going to find an extra little lift of my tailbone, and maybe this means a slight bend here in your front right knee, and then exhale to tuck. So I'm inhaling, heart forward, chest open, lift my tailbone, exhale, a little bit of a tuck. And we'll go for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Same thing with the open hip closed hip like we did in pyramid. I'm going to start to lift my right hip, so I'm breaking alignment and then closing it. Just sort of moving and working into the muscle. Let's do 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Rebend into your right knee, tuck your left toes, step forward. If you need a little bit of movement in between, softly bend into your knees. Take as much time as you need here. And when you're ready, let's lengthen halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. And with your exhale, fold, step your right foot back. Half split second side. We'll straighten your left leg. Flex your left foot. And I'm finding this little micro turn. So my nose is aligned with my left big toe. Draw your left hip up and back as you pull your right hip forward and down. And take your time. Ease into your stretch. There's no rush here at all. You're welcome to always even pause the video and spend even more time in these poses. It's really the key here with flexibility is consistency and persistency. Like we have to keep at it every day, just like strength. Let's go last 5. Coming back up to your hands if you were down on the forearms. We'll start to walk our hands this time over to the left, doing your best to keep your right hip pulling forward and your left hip drawing up and back. Nice. Come back to center. And we'll find the same little action here of the cat-cow. So with an inhale, extra tiny lift of the tailbone, and with an exhale, a tuck. So I'm pulling deeper than I normally would be in the pose, and with a tuck, I'm releasing that sensation. We'll go for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll go open hip, closed hip. So I'm going to start to lift my left hip and lower. 5, 4, 3, 2. Last one here. We'll come onto hands and knees this time. Cross your ankles and have a seat. If you have really tight hamstrings, I encourage you to maybe have a folded blanket, something to elevate your hips so we can find a little more length when we elongate forward. Otherwise, come into an active seat. Flexing your toes, staying slightly active through your legs. We're going to inhale. I want you to think of lengthening upward through your crown, drawing your navel back to your spine and all the way up towards your ribs. This forward fold is going to come again from the low back. So we're thinking of stretching all the way up and then we lengthen forward. So keep the hips drawing back. Heart reaches forward and we can crawl your hands forward. This can be a nice deep bend in your knees. You obviously do not have to be able to lie your chest down. So maybe yours looks more like this, and that's beautiful. We're all searching for the same feeling ideally. Some of us just go a little further to find it. So we'll start with a static hold here. Try to relax. Soften the back of your neck, soften your shoulders. Where we're active is in the core. So I'm actually using my core to actively pull my heart forward and then find the depth. Let's say for 5 breaths. Use your breath. If you're feeling this really, really deeply, I want you to think of every inhale, finding maybe a little more space in our body, a little more length through the side body and spine. And then every exhale, how can I soften? Where am I clenching or tightening? How can I release that? Remember, when your body's relaxed, when your body feels safe, this is when we're going to find so much more depth. And the last 2 breaths. And staying with the legs, staying active. Same idea with the core. Just want you to reach your arms forward. And we're just going to find this little pulse. So it's sort of like we did in the half split when we added the movement. We're pulsing forward, so we're going a tiny bit past our natural limit. But we're not staying in that. Just little bits. Okay? We'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Roll all the way up. We'll come into a half Gomukhasana. We'll start with the left foot on top. Stack your knees to the best of your ability and bring your heel in toward your hip. We'll take a nice deep breath in. Same idea. As we reach forward, it's coming from the low back. Really looking for length before depth. And we can crawl in. Your hands can be on blocks. Maybe you even have a bolster under your chest just to help you soften into the pose. As your body opens up, when you naturally feel your muscles release, that's when we'll crawl in even deeper. So just little by little. Do your best to keep your depth. We're going to start to angle our hands. So if you can, imagine that your hips are staying square. We're going to keep your left hip drawing back. Right hip forward, so we're not traveling, not letting our hips travel with us, I should say. And we'll crawl your arms over to the right. Let's come back to center. Stay with the left leg on top. This time we're going to mirror and bring your right heel all the way in. So this would be the start. Knees stacked to your heels in. It can be a little more open, and that's okay. But little by little, from the low back, we're going to start to gently take ourselves in. So I'm going to progress this pose, and it's up to you to know where you need to stay and when it's time for you to go further. And it's really important here in flexibility to listen to your body. Always making sure that we're riding the edge, but it's not too much. So I'm going to start to heel toe my feet a little further forward. This is more getting into an advanced stretch, so if you need to stay with your heels in, or even the half Gomukhasana, that's perfectly fine. If you're still wanting more, do your best to soften. Let's take 5 breaths. If you're still wanting a little more, maybe we heel toe even further, but you want to stop when your top knee is beginning to lift up. And slowly ease yourself back up and ease your legs out. Let's come straight into the second side. So without much release, we want to stay deep in the muscle. Take your right knee on top, right heel towards your left hip. And we'll start here. Inhale to lengthen upward and exhale to lengthen forward, letting depth come naturally. Well, starting with 10 breaths, just static hold. Soften, close your eyes. Let your shoulders be soft. Let the back of your neck be soft. Staying with your depth to the best that you can. We'll start by crawling over to the right this time. Adding just that little bit of twist. Maybe an extra length, extra reach from the left side body, really lengthening out through your left middle finger. Pass through center, and we'll crawl over to your left, finding that extra length through the right side body. And as you come back to center, ease your upper body up, and we'll find the full expression. Taking your left heel all the way in towards your right hip. Know that the left and right side of your body may be very different, and that's okay. Through time and through this plan and stretching, we'll start to find balance in the body. We'll start easing your way in. If sitting upright is a deep enough stretch, just hang out right where you are and soften in place. And if you know that you want a little more, you can find that same heel toe, maybe bringing our feet forward, heels in line with our knees. Last 10. Good. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ease your way up. Help your legs out. Maybe a gentle windshield wiper if you need a release in the outer hips. We're going to come back up and actually come into a down dog using the wall. So take a moment if you need to move your mat. I'm going to stay where I am here, and I'm just going to place my heels at the wall, coming onto my toes. So maybe this means we need to adjust the hands slightly. You can even bend your knees. Once you find your down dog shape, then we'll start to engage the arms just for support here. Triceps under, biceps spiral forward, and maybe we straighten the legs. So with your legs straight, I'm going to actively start to bob my chest. So I'm going to be pushing and lowering my rib cage towards my thighs. And maybe here we find that same intuitive movement if it feels good. Bending into one knee as you sort of bob into your chest. Even sway into your hips little by little. Keeping your right foot just as it is, I want you to crawl your hands in, maybe halfway. This might be a little bit awkward getting into, but we're going to find a standing split at the wall. So crawl your left foot up. Maybe it's here with your toe on the wall and your knee. Maybe we can start to elongate our left toes up. And this can even be a bend in your right knee. It doesn't have to obviously be a standing split. This is what we're working toward. And pressing into your hands, try to relax the back of your neck. If you can straighten your right leg, we can straighten the right leg. And then little by little, we'll keep that same sort of bob of the chest that we found in down dog. So it's a teeny bit of a rock. And as you start to open up, maybe we can start to ease the standing right heel down. Let's hold it here, 10 breaths. If you're wanting a little more, we can start to crawl the hands in. And go last 5. Stay active in your hands. A lot of these stretches, like I said, we're using our muscles to pull us in rather than relying on gravity or collapsing in the pose. Nice and slow. Crawl your hands back out. And we'll ease the left foot down and come into the second side. So starting back at the heels, and come on to the ball of your left foot and ease your right leg up. This can be a deep bend in both knees. We'll start to just sort of press our chest forward. As you press your chest forward, when you start to open up, we can start to square into the hip. So this might start really open with your right hip towards the ceiling. But little by little, we'll start to work the right hip towards the mat. Maybe work our left heel down. Actively pressing your hips back towards the wall and trying your best to bring your forehead a little closer to your shin here. 10 breaths. Nice and slow, and crawl your hands out. And ease your right foot all the way back down. And take a minute here in forward fold. Keep your neck relaxed. Bring your feet hip distance apart. Now from your forward fold, we'll just start to pedal into the knees, I really like to find this movement here, and this is what I do the most of, honestly, you guys, is bend one knee and really work the hips to one side. So the knee that is bent, I'm working the opposite hamstring, and if you're doing this, you obviously are going to be feeling that as well. It brings it a little bit into the outer hip. We'll switch sides. Deep, deep bend in the right knee. And then nice and slow, we'll slowly, slowly roll up to standing and bring your head up last. So come back to your mat. We're going to lie down. If you have a strap, I encourage you to get a strap, maybe even a dog leash or a towel, something around that length, and come all the way down onto your back. So we'll start here with the left leg extended. Bring your right knee into your chest. And if you have the strap, if you can't straighten your leg by hooking your big toe, we'll place the strap around the arch of your foot. So you can imagine I'm holding it here or even with one hand. But the key here is to do your best to keep your hips square. So when we start to draw our right leg towards our face in a reclined split, there's an action of wanting to hike the hip up. So what's really going to increase the stretch is if we keep pulling the right hip down. So I'm finding that length from my tailbone, trying to keep my low back flush and my right hip drawing down. So either holding your strap, maybe your big toe or the outer edges of your feet. We're going to start by bringing the leg just straight back. So I'm not opening to the right, I'm not closing too much or twisting to the left, just straight in. You can still keep the bend in your knee, but try to soften your shoulders, soften the back of your head. We're not lifting up to our leg, trying to bring our leg towards us. And just like before, in every stretch, when you feel your muscles open and you can find a little more length, then maybe we start to bring it in even deeper. Every exhale, how can I soften? Where am I holding tension without even realizing it? And go last 5 right here, straight down the middle. And this time, trying to keep your depth, I want you to angle just teeny tiny, maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches towards the right. So instead of straight down, it's more in line with your shoulder. And starting to open the hip and slightly changing where in the hamstring we're going to find the stretch. I find that when I open my hip, I can find a little more depth, but it's still a closed hip pose. Gently ease out, and we're going to come back to center, and this time find this tiny, tiny angle towards the left shoulder. So it's not big, we're not twisting. We're just starting to, again, change the stretch, working all angles of the muscle. And come back to center one more time, maybe finding even more depth. And then put a nice deep bend into your right knee. Pulling down onto your right shin, take an inhale. And we'll gently release the right leg. Notice how it feels in comparison to your left. The more subtleties you know in your body and feel in your body, the more in tune you're going to be. Let's draw your left knee in. And then we'll straighten the left leg. So same idea, you can use the strap or a towel, or if you can hold the big toe, go for it. But the key here is to try and do this stretch as relaxed as you can. If you're struggling to grip the toe, get a strap. And we'll start by angling straight down. Just directly in. Keep your left hip pulling forward, doing your best to keep your hips square. Keep your shoulders soft, and the back of your head soft. I encourage you to be patient with your body. I know that so many of us have tight hamstrings. Tight hamstrings and tight outer hips. If you're a runner, if you drive and commute to work or sit for long periods at your desk, this is probably really speaking to you right now. Be patient with your body. I promise you that this time you spend here is not in vain. And we'll start to angle to the left, just bringing your shin a little closer to your left shoulder. Teeny, teeny, tiny bit of opening. Last 5. Ease out to center, and we'll take the most micro little turn, bringing your left shin to your right shoulder. Let's come back to center one last time. And with a nice deep bend in your left knee, pull your left shin into your chest. Take an inhale. And with your exhale, release the left leg. And slowly ease your way, coming all the way back up to a seat. So I encourage you, if you have the time, to spend more time in these poses. Maybe the pose that you know in your heart that you need to spend a little more time in, not necessarily the one that feels the best. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.